here today, and I'm gonna go back to the shelter for, this is the third meeting in a row I've come. The first thing I want to hit on is I've asked you guys repeatedly if you would condemn anonymous hit jobs, lying in law enforcement interviews, and sex acts during the workday in government, and so far none of you will. Anybody want to change? Anybody want to say anything? Okay. I also asked you, because I'm going to start until you appoint something, you said you want to appoint me, but at Clermont County Doge, I've asked elected officials to tell me each week what are 5 accomplishments you had and how much time you actually spent in your elected official capacity. Any of you want to comment on that? Okay. Let's get on to the shelter. I'm going to present what I think is going to be the first Doge report. The first Chris Hicks Doge report. The most credible Doge ever in this county. And it's going to be on the animal shelter that gets an F grade. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare CARES last year to the county operation this year. And then I'm going to talk about the RFP. I want to make sure to manage my time. Let's do all the key metrics, just the metrics. I'm a fact guy, okay? So the animal shelter now, the last year of CARES versus now has 38% less hours that it's open. 38% less hours. The dog intake is 24% less now than it was in the last year of CARES. The dog exits are 41% less now than they were in the last year of CARES. The tax revenues spent on the shelter are 2.07 times more now than what they were under CARES. And I think that's way underestimated because I think you guys hide a lot of things that don't actually come out in the shelter reports that are money that are getting put into the shelter. The fundraising is a 96% reduction because the brain trust that decided to go to government controlled versus controlled by Humane Society forgot that Humane Societies do a shitload of fundraising, and they lost all that fundraising. The personnel is 48% less based on who's actually working there. At the end of 2024, there were 11 people on the staff of the current shelter. There were 21 at the end of the CARES experience. So that's a 48% reduction in personnel. And let's not forget cats. I like cats. I always have had a cat except right now because our cat passed away. But it is 100% reduction because we don't do cats anymore. When both CARES and Clermont to the Rescue did cats. So my Doge assessment of the Clermont County Animal Shelter is that it is an F. Empirically, listening to the horror stories and the sad stories, but on a fact basis alone. Spending is 2.7 times more. Staffing is 48% less. The volume out the door of dogs is 41% less. The hours are 38% less. The fundraising is 96% less. And they have no cats. That, my friends, is the David Painter Animal Shelter. That, my friends, is the hill that him and the Panterettes have decided to die on. To protect and preserve government incompetence while claiming to be Republicans. I also want to talk just for a second about, I've said repeatedly that the shelter RFP was designed to fail. And Mr. Painter had some of his great social media posts about how I'm fake news, and that's not true. Well, I have 2 excerpts here from the RFP. And I'll just give an example. Because what they did is they modified the old RFP. So there's red lines. I got the old versions before they had modified it, showing the red lines of what they modified. And I'll just give one example here. Originally, one part of it said, and I'll only read part of it. The selected respondent shall ensure the Clermont County Animal Shelter is open to the public at least 30 hours, 5 days a week for dog and other animal care, 10 hours per week, additional 10 hours per week care for dogs, blah, 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 maintain the shelter, clean the sanitary conditions. That got changed in the RFP that got issued to say only the selected respondent shall be on call 24 hours a day to respond to emergency calls as requested. How do you bid on that? What does it mean? On call to who? How many people on call? What's the call volume? So I can give a whole, I did a live stream with Rick Barron talking about all the things in the RFP that were not biddable. So the last thing, and I appreciate you saying this because I brought this with me. Mr. Painter, you always tell people they should go to the shelter. Can I go to the shelter and film today? They think they can get away with it. Maybe they can for a certain amount of time, but there's a day of reckoning coming. And watch in end of April, early May for a new media source in Clermont County called Watchdog Wire.